Welcome to Dr. Charles Speaks, a podcast for now. You've joined us for a special series of transformational talks, selected exclusively from Dr. Charles's corporate success calls. The 15-minute calls are designed to encourage leaders, activate your thought life, and prepare you for the challenges ahead. Dr. Charles joins every call with a blend of his personal experiences, his expertise as a John Maxwell certified mentor and coach, and of course, his more than 30 years of exceptional experience in both corporate America and ministry. Get motivated with Dr. Charles Speaks, a transformational talk from the red line on today's podcast, inspiring excellence and generating results.
Good day, my friends. This is Dr. Charles. It's always a pleasure to share with you some of the golden nuggets that I pick up from time to time in my reading, in my studying, in my experiences. And I'm excited today. I'm always excited to try my best to inspire you to continue to challenge yourself along your personal leadership growth. I'll never give up, and I don't want you to ever give up, because we can continue to learn and grow and do something with it. What good is to have all this great knowledge and insight and not do anything with it? I'm challenging you to make a difference on your job, make a difference in your community, make a difference in your home. And so today I want to continue the discussion on teamwork. I've been reading a great book by John Maxwell. It's called The 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork. If you haven't bought that book, buy it. I recommend it. And certainly I've been taking nuggets out of it and sharing with you, my audience. And certainly I'm applying it to my own journey. And I'm certainly expecting and challenging you to do the same. And so today I want to continue the discussion on teamwork and talk about the law of the bench. What do you mean, the law of the bench? You know, every team that is successful and wins the championships, you just look across the sports arena, whether it's soccer or baseball or basketball or football, you name it, whatever team it is, corporate America, whatever team it is, it takes a bench to make it all come together. Sure, you got your superstars, you've got your people who are the best of the best on the team, the starting 5 in basketball, the starting 9 in baseball, the starting 11 in football. But I'm here to tell you, not all of them can play the full game nonstop. You're going to need to have an effective bench. And some of you may say, well, you're just a scrub on the bench. No, everybody is included in the team in order to be able to be successful. Because you could be even Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Larry Bird, you name all the superstars, and there's no way possible that they can play the whole game, every single game of the season, and the playoffs, and the championship series, and play all the minutes, no rest, no time for timeouts. They would just practically drop on the floor out of exhaustion. And so the teams that are able to develop the strong bench, some people call it role players or game changers or people who assist. And they don't necessarily get all of the credit, because the people who get the credit are the folks that win the game when the game's on the line. Who's taking the last shot? Who makes the shot? Or crunch time, they call it, when someone has to score and has to make a stop on defense. But the bench, the role players, any team that wants to excel must have good substitutes as well as good starters, because every person has a role on the team. Everyone. A team starters are the people most often in the spotlight. You know, you go to a basketball game, I've been to a few, and before the game starts, the lights dim and the music plays, and the players are called. That is, the starters, the starting 5, one by one, they come out onto the floor to the applause, while the bench warmers are there applauding their team, but the fans, they don't get the introduction of their players because they're on the bench. Well, you know, the starters, they may get most of the credit, and the people on the bench are liable to be neglected or sometimes even overlooked. Well, if you're building a championship team, stop overlooking the bench. Stop neglecting the bench. It's true in any field, not just sports. You may be able to do some wonderful things with a handful of top people, but if you want your team to do well over the long haul, you've got to build your bench. Because a great team with no bench eventually collapses. That's what I want to say to you, that the law of the bench, because when you think about the great teams, they have a strong bench. You know, I like to use sports analogies. In the NBA, players and fans have long recognized the impact of the bench by talking about the all-important sixth man. What do you mean the sixth man? Well, if you watch basketball, you'll see that the starting five, at some point, they're going to start rotating the starters off the floor and onto the bench, and that sixth man is pretty close to being a starter. Actually, they could very well be a starter, but they are the best of coming off the bench, and you don't lose anything. The performance level doesn't suffer because the sixth man can score and can defend and do the things that the starting five can do. This person can make a significant contribution to the team's success, yet this particular person, the sixth man or the sixth woman, yet isn't one of the five starters. You get what I'm saying? That sixth person that comes off the bench is key. And sometimes you'll see the rotation of a team. They'll rotate up to 10 players, the starting five and five more. You'll notice sometimes in the playoffs and championship, they rotate probably only 7 to 8 players because the game is on the line and they played the season and now they're at a place where they can win the championship. And so here's what I want to say to you. A great starter alone is simply not enough if a team wants to go to the highest level. Every human being, you, me, everyone has value. And every player on any team, sports or corporate America, doesn't matter what team, your home team, everybody adds value to the team in some form or fashion. And so I just want to share some things with you that I think that will help you understand what I'm going with this, the law of the bench. Because today's bench players, guess what? They may be tomorrow's stars. So you never want to neglect them. Look at someone like quarterback Joe Montana. You remember him. He played for the San Francisco 49ers, a great quarterback who was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame back in year 2000. But guess what, my friends? Maybe you knew this, maybe you don't. For those that don't know, he spent 2 years on the bench as a backup before being named the starter. And as he was breaking records and leading his team to numerous Super Bowls, guess what? The person behind him who sat on the bench as a backup was Steve Young, another top-notch quarterback, who was able to come in and continue the winning with the San Francisco 49ers. And so you see, sometimes on the bench, you may be the bench player today, but tomorrow's star. I'm reminded of the music industry. Sometimes you see the main artists out front singing their songs, but behind you see over to the right or to the left the backup singers, they call them. And sometimes the backup singer becomes the star at some point because they've learned their craft and they've gotten better and they've watched the success of those that are on the main stage out front and they have their time. John Wooden, the UCLA former basketball coach, he once said, the main ingredient of stardom is the rest of the team. What do you mean? When every team member fulfills the role that best suits his or her talent, his or her gifts and experience, and excels in that role, then the team really comes together. It takes scores of people working behind the scenes to bring everything together. You know, in practice, you don't get to see practice, but those starters are playing against those bench players, and those bench players are getting better because they're tired of getting beat up and losing to the starters, and so they do what? They try harder and they play harder. I can remember as a kid getting into the game of basketball, and I would play with the kids that were bigger and better, and they would block my shot, and they would let me be wide open to shoot because they knew I would miss. But as I challenged myself to get better, because I got tired of losing and got tired of them talking a whole lot of smack, I got better. And it takes that work behind the scenes to get onto the floor and to show that you're ready to become a starter or you're ready to play your role as a bench player. Because a strong bench gives the leader more options, gives the coach more options. When a team has a weak bench, then the leader has few options. But when a team has a great bench, the options are almost endless. And that's where the difference is. A championship team versus a wannabe or a middle-of-the-pack team that just plays 500 ball. They don't have enough resources. And, you see sometimes great teams and great potential on the bench, but sometimes the leader doesn't know how to utilize and put people in position to win, even as it relates to the starters or even as it relates to the bench players. You've got to still have a game strategy. You have to know when to substitute. You have to know the opposing team, their strengths and their weaknesses in order to make a difference and make change. You have to be able to identify the bench player's strength and play to it. It may be one on the bench who's a defensive stopper. It may be another on the bench who's an offensive scorer. It may be another on the bench that just simply is a great rebounder, or someone who can just spell the starter for about 3 or 4 minutes in a game so that the starter can get a breather. And so you have to know the bench in order to be successful and intertwine them into the starter's role and expectation. As you think about starters and you think about bench players on your team, recognize that the future of your team can be predicted by these 3 things. Number 1, recruitment. Who's joining the team? You cannot build a winning team, let's face it. You cannot build a winning team without good players. You either find the player for the position or you find the position for the player. You make the choice. Number 2, training. Well, even though you've got all of the great potential players on your team, you're still going to have to provide training. Are you developing the team? Or you're just simply letting them go on raw talent and not being able to put your arms around it and even enhance that raw talent and make them even better. Someone said you cannot solve tomorrow's problems with today's solutions. So you've got to always be thinking ahead and thinking about what is next and what can you do better. And sometimes when you have a team, you're going to face losses. I'm not talking about wins and losses. I'm talking about personnel. Sometimes good personnel move on. In sports, free agents. Hey, I'm going where I can make more money, or I'm going to a location where I like to bring my family. Whatever the reason may be, you're going to lose sometimes when it comes to those starters, or perhaps from a college, they graduate and they go into the pros. From the pros, they become free agent, they leave and go somewhere else. But on the other side, you've got players that just simply don't fit the scheme or the what is taking place. They're not able to perform effectively enough to hold that position. But here's the thing you got to know. Here's the bottom line. If you keep non-productive people on the team, the productive ones going to become frustrated, and they're just going to simply leave because you're not doing anything about it. You want to continuously make the changes that are needed so that they're good losses or regrettable losses, but at the same time, they are non-productive losses. Because at the end of the day, the only way to build a great team is to bring everyone together and take the diversity of their talent and strengths and mold them together, and they become one great team. Well, my time is up. I hope it has benefited you in some positive way, that you too will begin building your team, your brand, and making a difference. God bless you and have a great day. Now let's make it a great week.
Thank you for listening to Dr. Charles Speaks. Visit drcharlesred.com for booking info for your ministry, business, or leadership team. Get info about the Red Line, a 15-minute corporate success call each Monday morning with Dr. Charles. Follow Dr. Charles on all social media at Dr. Charles Red. Subscribe to the podcast here for every episode of Dr. Charles Speaks. Thanks for joining us. Like Dr. Charles always says, no matter what, never, never, never give up. Until next time.